what is that you call your truth? If your truth is colonial knowledge system, is your truth your traditional, what is your truth? Your teacher's education is your truth? Your academic thing? What is it that you can call this is my truth? Many times people walk up and say, Maponga, I believe this, and say, shut up. You don't believe nothing of what you have said. Say, I've been told to believe this. Because if I should interrogate your process of thinking to come to that conclusion, I'll find a group of teachers indoctrinating you and brainwashing you. At the end of the day, no, I believe.
He broke it down so nicely on that concept of the thinking tool. You don't have it right now. It would have been beautiful to illustrate it here on this video. I would have really loved it.
Do you need a stick 9, do?
Yeah, I can use my cup.
Yeah, that's you can use the cup. Oh, that's how you came with it, yeah. I would like for it, he simplified it so beautifully. I
wanted to emphasize to what you were saying about the squatters that want to start their journey. When the student is ready,
the teacher
will appear. So it's up to you. We're not going to force you. All we're doing, like Morpheus in the Matrix, is we're showing you that there's another door.
Yeah.
It's really up to you, Red Pill Nation, if you're willing to walk through it.
So the thinking tool will be designed something like this. It will have 3 columns on it. So if it was, usually I carry my stick or my spear, that has the same illustration. So you have 1 block of time, 2nd block of time, 3 block of time. So let's say this represents the past. Of course, that's where our destiny sits on. It sits on the past, where we're coming from. This becomes the present, which is actually an incubant, like a container, where stuff from the past is all locked up here to create what we call the present. I like in the opening part here, it represents the future, full of opportunities, the unknown, and ready to be filled in with new possibilities, and etc. So the past, the present, and the future. And then the first ring that is here would say that represents the Western education. The second ring that is here would say that represents the Northern education. Then the third ring that is here, it represents the Chinese and the Eastern education. And the last ring that is here, that represents the African, which is the Ubuntu kind of thing. So when you ask me a question, I ask myself 7 questions before I even answer you. What was it like in the past? What is it like in the present? What will it be like in the future? How are the Americans doing it? How are the Europeans doing it? How are the Chinese doing it? And how are the Africans doing it? Then you process all sorts of concepts within that thinking tool. So that you, be it education, how are we being educated in the past? How are we being educated in the present? What does the educational future look like? What are the Americans educating their children on? What are the Chinese and the Europeans educating their children on? And what are the Africans doing? Ask me a question of marriage. How are we marrying in the past? How are we marrying in the present? How will we marry in the future? How are the Americans getting married? How are the Europeans getting married? How are the Chinese and Indians getting married? How are the Africans getting married? In conclusion, many times we think like this as Africans. Firstly, we want to prioritize the Americans, the Europeans, the Chinese, and the Africans last. But the correct way of thinking must be from this way. Ubuntu first. We interpret the world from ourselves towards them. So firstly, if you are talking about marriage, I don't have to worry about what the Europeans are saying. I don't have to worry about what the Americans and the Chinese are saying. The question is, what do I say here? So here's an African who is busy trying to get a white dress, but an African who wants a white dress, a European ring, and a Chinese shoe to get married as an African. And we wonder why these things not working. But because we are taking what does not belong to us, and we are prioritizing it, and we are undermining exactly the essence of our being. So in terms of thinking, you can process, I can take my thinking tool or my cup like this, and I can sit in the garden, and I can just pick up a subject in my mind, and I start just processing it through without talking to anybody. And you find me giggling all by myself.
For example, let's move to the next subject. We said from education we're going to, we said politics, or we said
politics.
No, I wanted to speak about the real estate of the mind and the fact that it's been tampered with by colonial education. Zimbabwe has got one of the best, as far as we know, education systems on the continent, which is colonial. And yet we're seeing their people running away from their land. We're seeing their people, when you speak now, even about health and reproduction, coming to South African hospitals. We heard a story recently with the MEC of Limpopo, Dr. Poppy Ramathuba. As a Zimbabwean yourself.
Ibuhlungu. Ask me why. Zimbabwe is one of the most educated countries in Africa. But I can say this publicly.